We all know the life-changing money that the NFL has, and now you're starting to see that kind of in the NCAA level where all these NIL kids they're making more money than some of the guys on practice roster in the NFL. If I could go back and do it again, I would have just started in high school. And the biggest thing is just getting over, I think, on the personal side of things, of worrying what everyone else thinks. Like, it's so funny because, like, us as football players, like, we're always coached, like, don't worry what anyone else thinks about you. Like, you are what you believe. Go out there and put that on the football field. So I think just using a little bit of that mindset to the content creation side, and I think if you can utilize that, put out content, get your reps in, no different than, getting reps on the football field, eventually you'll land yourself in a situation where we never would have thought you would have been.
Welcome to Athlete Country Club, the podcast built for parents, athletes, and competitors chasing the next level. I'm your host, Marcus McMarion, former Division I quarterback, now founder of Athlete Country Club. I started this show because, like many of you, I had to learn the recruiting process the hard way, traveling up and down the state, spending thousands trying to figure out what actually works. Each week, we break it down through two powerful segments. First, Coach Talk. This is where we sit down with college coaches, director of player personnel, recruiters to uncover exactly what they look for when offering scholarships. No fluff, just the truth from people making the decisions. Second, Athlete CEO. Here we go beyond the field, into habits, training, and mindset that build elite performance and long-term success. You'll hear from strength coaches, nutritionists, sports psychologists, and former athletes who've turned their grind into greatness in business, leadership, and life. Because being an athlete isn't just about playing the game, it's about mastering it and building your legacy beyond it. So whether you're a parent trying to navigate recruiting or an athlete ready to level up, you're in the right place. Welcome to Athlete Country Club, where we turn potential into performance and performance into purpose. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Athlete Country Club. I'm your host, Marcus McMarion. Today's guest is someone I've had a front row seat to kind of watch up close and personal, not just as a player, but as a professional chasing the next level. He's a professional defensive back, host of the podcast, Behind the Visor podcast, and someone I trained alongside with while we were both preparing for the NFL and CFL draft in his hometown of Bakersfield, California. He's not our first guest to play in the CFL, but he is our first guest to take the Canadian college route, which brings a completely different perspective on development, recruitment, and opportunity. This conversation is just about betting on yourself, kind of carving your own path and understanding really just how to win. Stavros, welcome to Athlete Country Club, brother.
Marcus, my man, appreciate you for having me on, and excited to kind of share my story and any insight I could give to the next generation of athletes coming up.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you guys are doing it big at Hamilton. I mean, you got Bo, and you guys got a bunch of talent out there, and obviously you're an active professional athlete right now in the CFL at Hamilton, and I think at the same time you're building your own media platform with Behind the Visor, and how do you see the shift of athletes taking control of their own narrative through podcasts and vlogging and streaming?
Yeah, I think the shift has definitely happened over like the last couple of years. Yeah, you see so many athletes doing the sort of athlete-led narrative and telling their own story, different from, I guess, traditional media where you don't feel like you can always open up, right? Like that's the one thing I notice so much in talking with other players. When you have, your traditional media, it's hard to answer questions in a way that doesn't seem like so scripted nowadays, right? Like all your football staffs and stuff like that are media training you to answer everything in a pretty cookie cutter way. And I think for me, being able to tell my story through my own personal brand and then also help give that platform to other players who, again, everyone has just such unique stories and how they got to the game, what they're doing within the game, whether it's on the field, off the field, community involvement, all that sort of stuff. So I think that kind of initially interested me in sort of developing the podcast. Like I was always so big on the, I guess branding side. Once I got into the pro level, I kind of messed around like vlogging a little bit when I was at UBC. And I it's funny because I've always been the guy that likes to film things. Like even when I was in college, in high school, like I was the guy that would record things and, if we're going out having a good time, like just recording the experiences. So I think it always kind of came natural to me to kind of be, I guess, that sort of extroverted personality, wanting to talk. And since then, it's just kind of grown into this. I think my first ever podcast I launched was, I think it was the Stavros Show back in 2019, just around when, or I think it was 2020 when COVID happened. So I was that was my first intro to it. And those are some cringeworthy podcasts to listen to, finding your voice on camera. But I think in saying that, ever since I did that, I started, each year in the CFL, it's always been kind of about, yes, it's being the best you can be on the field and being elite and all that sort of stuff, but also I think setting myself up for, post football and kind of what I'm going to do. And in doing that and kind of sharpening this sort of media tool, if you want to call that, it's kind of opened different doors. The podcast, my own social media. Last year I was able to go on TSN and, was on the panel for Friday Night Football and got my first, I guess, experience of being on live television and, giving commentary and actual professional football player insight of someone who's actively in the league. So I don't think I would have had that opportunity had I not been, doing things like this from the podcast perspective, the social media side, and just kind of showing who I am authentically outside of just, hey, how's your season looking for this year? Or, tell us about this loss that you guys just had, right? Where you sometimes don't get to share your actual personality because of the way, you're told to answer these questions. So I think that's been kind of the biggest shift for me. And then you just see all across, North America, right? With even what you're doing right now, right? Like going from playing football to now sharing these stories and giving guys a platform, to kind of just see what else is out there other than just, the grind of football and, the banging of heads, so to speak, when it comes to being on the field. I think there's just so much more that goes into it off the field. I think that's why I've always been so interested in it. And then again, just wanting to build it more and more each year and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, no, and I've always been jealous that you kind of have that innate ability, like of people like you and my wife. Like me and my wife will enjoy the same day going to like a day trip to San Francisco or go to Texas, and like I'll look at her story and I'm like, dude, your day looked amazing. And then I'll look at my day and I'm like, what did I do today? It's like just doing such a good job of documenting and filming. And it's nothing special. You're just kind of creating what you're doing and kind of in the moment. And as far as the media stuff, you're talking to a quarterback who's been media trained my whole life of how to answer a question with not even answering your question. And again, I think that's where the podcast, it does give athletes that sense of freedom to be able to kind of talk free willingly. And obviously we still have that presence of like, hey, we're not going to talk about guys' injuries and stuff like that,
right?
But just being able to kind of be yourself and be free. And I think it's interesting because I mean, you might have a different take. I personally think NIL's kind of changed everything at the college level, but I think it's kind of worked its way up the ladder to some of these professional guys where them thinking like, hey, like, wait, like I've went through that system. I'm quote unquote higher on the totem pole than college guys because I'm a professional athlete. Like maybe it's my turn to kind of monetize my story. And I mean, for you, like when do you feel an athlete should start documenting their journey?
Man, I think now I wish if I could go back and do it all over again, I would have started from, at least high school, right? I don't know so much as youth football, but then again, I see scrolling on social media the other day and I forget the name of the kid. I think you probably have seen him. He's a quarterback. I think is it KJ or something like that? And
there's a couple little viral kids. Yeah.
And he's like literally like a youth football player. He's getting hundreds of thousands of views. Like just his dad films his games. He's mic'd up and like kids are eating that up. Right. So like imagine, I don't know how good this kid is actually like from a football perspective, but imagine he does get a shot, at the D1 level and he already has basically a mega brand built by the time he gets there. Like how much he would be worth compared to someone who didn't do any brand building and enters that college system. It's like the money that kid will be able to make and what he'll be worth to the school. You're talking about setting yourself up for life after football before you even set foot on the professional side. Whereas, when you and I were growing up, there wasn't really any money to make, at the collegiate level because of the NCAA rules. Also the same, very similar rules up in Canada. And if you wanted to have a lot of money and make a lot of money, make a living playing pro football, it's like, okay, you either had to play in the NFL or you had to play in the CFL. And we all know the life-changing money that the NFL has. And now you're starting to see that kind of in the NCAA level where all these NIL kids they're making more money than some of the guys on practice roster in the NFL, right? So I think if I could go back and do it again, I would have just started in high school. And the biggest thing is just getting over, I think, on the personal side of things of like worrying what everyone else thinks. Like it's so funny because like us as football players, like we're always coached like, don't worry what anyone else thinks about you. Like you are what you believe and, go out there and put that on the football field. So I think just using a little bit of that mindset to the content creation side. And I think if you can utilize that and just put out content, get your reps in, no different than, getting reps on the football field, eventually you'll land yourself in a situation where, you never would have thought you would have been. So I think that's what I would have changed. And just not worrying about, okay, it might be bad content now, but the more times you do it, the more comfortable you get. Like I said, I can look back on some of my first videos I've ever put out, and they are not as polished as they are now. They are. I still watch them back just to see, man, I can't believe I even spoke like that and posted this on the internet. But again, it just goes to show you that it doesn't come naturally, and you got to work at it every single day, and just like you do football. But it can really set you up for success down the line.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that it's almost like a generational kind of transition to where this new generation of athlete, content creation was there since they were in Little League football and they were starting youth football and kind of these youth sports, to where I think back to Ramel Dockery was my teammate at Oregon State, and obviously he's grown a massive, successful kind of YouTube channel and everything he's doing. But I vividly remember in the moment when he was recording at the hotel or kind of recording in the locker room, everyone would kind of give him a side eye, what are you doing, bro? You're not locked. It was almost presented when we played as you're not locked in, you're not focused, you need to be more of a student in the game. Whereas there's definitely times to be locked in and focused and not pull out a camera. But I mean, it is changing. I mean, the whole game is changing to where it's hey, if you could document and you could content and kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit here. I don't know if you recently saw the Devontae Adam clip where he's talking about his workouts. He doesn't film his workouts. Yeah. He's extremely private, not sharing, not showing anything. But where's the line between being a content creator and being a locked in football player? What does that preparation look like at the highest level for you?
Yeah, and I think that's something I won't say I struggle with it, but just trying to, like you said, find that fine line of, because you never want to be a distraction, right? That's, I think, the cardinal sin in football is when something becomes a distraction. And when you're winning, it's easy, right? If you're winning a bunch of football games and,
so true, yeah,
things get swept under the rug so much easier. But I think when you're losing, that's when you kind of sort of have to pick and choose your battles. But, for me initially, I was kind of along that same line where I was I don't want to record everything I'm doing. I kind of just want to work in silence. And then, again, you just start to see what you're missing out on. And you can, for me, doing the content stuff over the last couple of years, and even now more so, just doing it on more of a consistent basis, you can definitely get a hard workout in. And if anything, you're being watched even more, right? So they always say who are you when no one's watching? Well, who are you when everyone's watching, right? You can't half a rep when it's being recorded and it's getting posted to social media, right? So it's almost you have to work that much harder, than everyone else. So I think there is, again, a fine line. Once the football season starts, especially at the pro level, this has always stuck with me, but one of my defensive coordinators always said, if it doesn't point directly towards winning, it's got to go. So I think, again, just finding that fine balance of, okay, off season is easy to, post content and share things. I think once it gets into the season, for me personally, I try to lean that balance back more towards football. Because at the end of the day, we all know football is so short and it's not going to last forever. And, it can be taken away from you at any time. Content will always be there. I think even more so, the content is what you put out on the field at that point, right? During the season, if you score a big touchdown, make a big catch, make a big play, right? Nowadays age, the social media teams posting that they're collabing with you, so you're getting that notoriety on that. And I think, again, it's so hard to weigh in. Okay, is the value of me missing out on this worth me not doing it at all, right? Even though it really doesn't take that much time. It's as simple as point, shoot, record, and then if you're fortunate enough to be able to source out an editor or a social media manager to kind of offload the stuff that you have to do, it's really not a whole lot of work. So yeah, it's a fine line. And I know that everyone has their different routine and kind of how they approach the game, and whether, like you said, some people feel like you're not locked in if you're filming and recording stuff. And again, I think there's a time and a place for when and where to do it. Obviously if it's halftime in the locker room, you're not going to see me holding the camera and recording. But I think it's really documenting the journey and the process throughout that, right? Like if we're getting on a plane to fly, across the country of Canada, I might shoot something or share an experience from that, right? I think sharing the experience and giving people insight into, the behind the scenes, I think is just invaluable, and people kind of eat that up, especially when you're in a industry that's less than 1% of the world. I think it's good to share that stuff, but it's not for everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it's interesting too, being able to share that, because there is such a fine line in sharing things and doing that, but it's just your approach, and you're in such a specific time in your life, and it's such a small window. Like, you want to be able to capture that. And I just heard someone say, it's like, if someone records something that's on film, like, you have it for life. Like, you essentially have that memory. And it's funny. One of the things I hang my hat on, and like, I am most proud of myself for doing, is like my senior year, for whatever reason, it was the year I had read a book, Relentless, by Tim Grover. I don't know if you read that book, Kobe Bryant's trainer. And he's talking about how locked in Kobe was. And I had read it right before fall camp. And I said, you know what? I don't need social media. Like, I don't need to do it. And I was really proud of myself for doing that, because after my first game, I was using social media for the wrong reasons, more as like a validating purpose for me. And that's just an own personal thing that I was kind of struggling with internally, that I was like, I knew I had a good game, but I was like, I had to make sure the Fresno Bee said I had a good game. I had to make sure ESPN said I had a good game, or the fans loving Marcus is amazing. Like, and if someone was saying something negative, like, it really got to me. So I was like, you know what? Like, the only thing that matters is what's in between these four walls. So I went off social media. But I say that as a preface to where, like you said, I kick myself in the foot. I probably lost out on like 10 or 20,000 followers, because we got to 15 in the country, and maybe I could have deleted social media off of my phone, but it would have took me a minute a week to post a video or to collab with the social media. So it's like, you're not distracted. There's ways to incorporate it into your everyday without being locked and glued to your phone 24 hours. Like, you could probably post a video, and maybe you shot it 2 weeks ago, you just been sitting on it and you posted it, to where it's like, it doesn't affect your weekly schedule and things you got going on. So it's funny, because I was such an old school kind of like, you need to grind, you need to focus, but I am kind of starting to agree with kind of the new wave. It's like, man, you might as well document it, because you're only going to play football for this amount of time. But now you have, like you said, you're setting yourself up with TSN and all these network opportunities. And I had a chance to commentate a game, and it's 10 times more difficult than I would ever thought, because I realized about myself that I take in the game when I'm watching it, and I'm not always verbalizing what I'm listening to. So I kind of learned that about myself the first time I did it. And I just want to kind of fast forward a bit to where, like, you playing on the field, I mean, you've made an immense impact in the CFL and being able to just be a leader on the team. And I think it's fair to say, I think we both, I mean, when we're walking into a locker room, we're not the biggest, fastest, or most physically gifted guys every time we're in those locker room. I mean, for you personally, like, how do you level the playing field?
Yeah, I think I've just done it ever since I was a kid. Like, since I first got into the game, I've always just had that passion for football that I think supersedes, the statistical requirements of what it actually takes to be a pro football player, right? Your prototypical, 6 foot and above, 4'4", 20 plus reps on the bench, all that sort of stuff. And I think because of just my love for the game and, having a little bit of chip on the shoulder because of my size and not taking the traditional route to get to where I am today, I think for there, I mean, I'm looking at one of these trading cards that's in front of me, but like Tim White, who's been my teammate for the last couple of years, he's now playing in Winnipeg, but, Southern California kid, we probably grew up maybe 60 miles away from each other. He played at ASU, played in the NFL for the Ravens for a bit, and then, ended up being my teammate, and a guy that I covered kind of daily in practice, sort of the iron sharpening iron. And when you look at it, it's like, it doesn't make sense that I should be here. But I think, again, just having that confidence of always feeling like, okay, I belong here. I'm here for a reason. And, I just go out there and put my best foot forward every day. And again, just get better with all these guys that are also, at the pinnacle of the sport, grinding on that same sort of level. I think that just sort of, I guess, centers me when I walk in that locker room and I look around and I see 60 other guys that, and yeah, there are some guys that are like me, right? Like you got your probably 4 or 5 guys on each team that don't always look the part. Sometimes they are kickers, but kickers are people too. But when you look around that locker room and you just see, these guys that are in there, I think, again, it's just that confidence level that I have in myself and also a little bit of just wanting to prove people wrong, right? Like, that's always been my thing. I was told so many times as a kid, like, you'll never play pro football, you'll never go D1, all that sort of stuff, and you're not fast enough, not strong enough. And I think I've just always wanted to prove people wrong. So I think in that same breath, when you walk into some of these locker rooms, especially when I was a rookie coming in, people just see you and automatically you get tagged, right? Like you're the small guy, the short guy, whatever. He's not good enough, not big enough, not fast enough. He's Canadian, whatever it is, right? And I think it's always just wanting to prove those guys wrong. So it's like as soon as I can get out on the field and like make a big play, and then I see the opinion of me change, and maybe that is like a little bit of validation seeking. So probably not always the best way to go about it, but I will say, like, I do love proving people wrong. So I think just and earning that respect for people, for myself and what people have for me, I think that just helps, when you step in those locker rooms with those type of players.
Yeah, no, and truthfully, I felt like I've always felt, I don't want to say my lack of just God-given ability of being super fast or super strong or super like tall has almost been advantageous to me, because I felt like some of the guys that I've been around, I'm sure you have similar experiences, were like the most freakish athletes or the fastest, strongest guys, they're usually missing some component of the game where they've relied so heavily on their God-given ability that they haven't developed the other parts of the game. So they're actually hurting in some sense, to where kind of gives guys like us that it's like, I'm 6'1", 6'2". NFL didn't want to give me 6'2". They gave me 6'1" 3/4", but it's okay. But like living with stuff like that, to where it's like, for you, like, what are those intangibles that don't show up on a combine sheet but allows you to win some reps?
Yeah, I think the biggest one has to be the football IQ, and I think that's something that I've just had since I was I wouldn't say a young kid. I would say football IQ is definitely developed, but I think I just learned at a faster rate, than most people, just understanding like schemes, concepts, where people like to throw the ball. And then also on top of that, like just being a playmaker, like just always trying to find myself around the ball and get my hands on the football, especially as a defensive player. Like, that's so important. And that football IQ, I think just sharpening that knife through high school, going into college, kind of having to learn a different game in the Canadian football, rules and the nuances of the game up here, and always just asking questions. I think that's been the biggest. I think a lot of times as a football player, like, we get so used to, getting yelled at, kind of not getting put down in a way, but how it is. Like, that's football.
Up, yeah.
Getting coached up. And sometimes you can feel like, I shouldn't speak up or shouldn't ask a question. Like, you don't want to ask the wrong question or ask a dumb question. Now, I have asked quite a bit of dumb questions over my lifetime of playing football.
Me too.
And in that, I've learned, asking the right questions and at the right time, right? So if I don't know something, like, I'm going to ask a question, because if I don't understand it, then I won't be able to apply it on the field. And if I don't understand it in a way that, maybe the coach is teaching it a certain way, that maybe I'm a visual learner and he's teaching it in an audio way, that's, more just spoken word. It's like, hey, coach, like, can you draw this up? And that might not be in that meeting, maybe after practice, on my own time, so I can learn it the right way, right? But I think just doing stuff like that, just always wanting to be a student of the game, always want to learn. I'm still like that today, going into year 6 up in the CFL. And I think that's also important to keeping yourself in the game, right? Like, I think the moment you stop taking coaching and you just think you've made it and you're there, I think that's the moment you fall off the top of the mountain. So that's been kind of one of my, I guess, goals of mine in each year, is like, okay, no matter what, yeah, you've made a ton of plays, you've reached the status, you're at the top of the level in your game, but there's always room to learn, and there's always room to be coached. No matter if you think you know more than the coach, you're better than the coach. The coach may have not, played at the level that you have, or done the things that you've done. Like, there's always room to be coached, and you never know. Like, the coach could say something that could help you. It may be even indirectly could help you make a play later on in the season or later on in the game when it's a critical time of the game. So I think that's where I've always just tried to get better. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm a human being just like everybody else. I sometimes get mad, when certain plays are called, if I feel like I don't agree. But I think in saying that, like, it just doesn't, it's not worth it to live in that realm where it's like, oh, I'm just going to disagree because I feel like I know better. It's just like, all right, have some, be a little bit humble, realize you don't know everything, and recognize that you need to be coached every single day, or else, you'll start to build that complacent mindset. If you read the headlines and, all the great things that people are saying about you. I think, our D coordinator always kind of talks about the Nick Saban rat poison whenever, whenever you're having good things said about you. It's sort of, hey, that's a little bit of rat poison. Don't feed into it too much, and, just focus on the game and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that's kind of been the biggest component over my football career, is just that football IQ. And I think that just sometimes gives me an extra step. Like if I know what play is coming before the play happens, yeah, maybe 4.6, 4.5, whatever, but that's going to give me an extra step on the 4.4 guy, to make up that closing speed or that distance, that could give him the separation if I didn't have a head start on sort of that reaction. So definitely a lot of credit to that for sure.
Yeah, and I think that just takes, it's an immense amount of maturity as a player, and it takes a while to get to that point of like, hey, you're going to reach a point where you're going to have to swallow your ego. You're not going to be able to be so prideful, and you're going to have to understand like, hey, there's things that I can learn. And funny enough, you mentioned that one of the guys that I actually learned a lot from, and I feel like I had a lot of development, was from actually Juju Hughes, who he played at Hanford, and he was in the league for a little bit, but we were teammates while we were at Fresno State, and we would have obviously kind of our own battles, internal battles, trying to play with each other and beat and like this and that. And just talking with him, it's like maybe he picked me off and I'd be like, dang, how did you know I was going there? Like what tell did I do that kind of gave you an extra step? And he'd kind of tell me and be like, okay, I beat him one time and I got him going the wrong way and I turned and I got him. He's like, hey, how did you know I was doing this? And like being able to bounce those ideas off of each other, even though we're completely separate side of the ball, like different positions. And
right.
From the outside looking in, you would think, well, why is a DB talking to the quarterback? You guys can't help each other. And it's actually the complete opposite, because we're having internal battles every single day. Yeah, and it's like for you in your situation, you have Bo Levi, he's probably one of the, I would argue, I had a small friendship with him, where I would consider us friends, a small time when I was with Calgary, to where he's one of the greatest to ever play in the CFL. And like you have that opportunity to go, you've had that opportunity to go back and forth with him and practice scene and kind of pick each other's brain, and you guys have developed a friendship. And I mean, like, what separates guys who maximize their ability versus guys who just rely on their talent?
Yeah, I think like you have to obviously surround yourself and have that successful support group, right? And I think, even kind of going back to sort of the Bo Levi story, and ever since, obviously I didn't start my career out with him. He ended up coming here kind of after he had gotten benched in Calgary, and everyone was writing him off, saying, your career's done, all that sort of stuff, and signs with Hamilton, comes over here. That's kind of the first year I kind of got my start here in the league, and, kind of took off from there, breakout season, all that sort of stuff. And I'd always try to ask him different questions of, because he's a vet in the league. He's done all these great things. He's been in MOPs, won Grey Cups. He's, been an all-star, led the league in different categories. But on the other side of that, he's also lived through the negative side of football, right? The losses, the, throwing 4 picks in a game. I don't know if he ever has done that, and, don't quote me, so he might get mad at me there. But just those type of things, like I would glean information off him like that. And his thing was just like, man, just keep staying consistent. Like, don't worry about trying to make everything happen at once. It's just like, that's the game at the end of the day. Like, you're going to have wins, you're going to have losses. There's going to be ups and downs, but if you stay consistent through it all, right, and not let that, let those lows get you too low or the highs get you too high, like, you'll just ride it out and great things will happen. And then even kind of fast forwarding to this last year, we were actually roommates for the year. He was living with me for a bit, and, just putting in the work, 5 a.m. mornings, getting to the stadium early, leaving late. And it's funny because, I tell the story all the time, and I talk about how, we're leaving, it's 5:30 in the morning, and you would think like, oh yeah, it's probably a silent car ride. It's early in the morning, whatever. We're just having a coffee, and we're actually just like bouncing all these different football plays off each other's minds. Hey, how are you attacking the team this week that we're playing? Or I'll ask him like, hey, how do you think this quarterback that we're playing this week will read me if I do this or if I do that? Or what's his pre-snap key? Just like little information and bits and pieces from, again, a Hall of Fame quarterback who's done and seen it all. And another guy who is the reason his career has been able to be revitalized is, through our head coach, Scott Milanovich, is just being able to be coachable and not thinking, oh, yeah, I've won multiple Grey Cups, I've won an MOP, I've done it all, I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame. I could really not listen to anything that anyone has to say and just say it's my way or the highway. But I think, so much credit to him and his ability to be coached and take his game again to the next level and kind of revitalize his career these last few years and play at a MOP type level, all-star caliber level. And again, just being able to bounce things like that off him, and same way where, I'll pick him off in practice and he'll be like, hey, like, why did you go there? Why did you do this? Like, how did you know the play was going to happen? Or like if he throws a touchdown on me, I'm like, okay, why did you throw it this way? Or what put me in a bad position? I think those are like the invaluable things that you don't really learn necessarily from being coached. You kind of have to learn from, players that have been there, sort of done that, and are always trying to evolve their game.
Yeah, and I think that's such a moment to kind of park the conversation too for high school athletes and parents and everyone just listening to, where it's like, it's a common theme if you kind of listen to the podcast that you develop so much in just the casual conversations that are outside of your designated, we have a team meeting from this time to this time, and we're going to watch position film, like a robotic kind of stuff. Like, or a lot of the development happens outside of your actual regimented routine of just like, hey, Stavros is a defensive back having a casual conversation with the quarterback, and they're talking football, and they're able to kind of pick each other's brain a little bit. And it's not like a interview question style thing. It's like, oh, we're just sitting there talking, and then the conversation might go to Call of Duty, and then it might go to golf, and then we come back to football, and then like you don't know where the conversation's going to go, right? So I think that's kind of the beauty, is like, if you want to be as successful and reach the highest level like Stavros and Bo and these guys are at, it's like it has to almost just be a part of your identity to where it is a casual conversation and it doesn't feel forced, and you're just having that routine conversation. And I think just kind of talking to the parents and the athletes right now and kind of rewinding back to your high school days. I mean, I was able to check you out a little bit. I mean, you had 75 tackles your senior year. I mean, that's pretty real. That's real production there, man. From the back end too. But production doesn't always equal offers. Like for you, I mean, kind of walk us through your recruiting process. Like, what did it look like versus what you thought it was going to look like?
Yeah. I think, again, my goal was always, the D1 bound, all that sort of stuff, and putting in the work. Early on in high school, I think I started out at Garces Memorial for the first sort of 2 years of my high school, and was playing football there, doing really well. And then, kind of moved to Liberty High School. Coach Nixon was there, and I was living out in that area. And, wanted to kind of take the step up, go to D1 football and again, just surround myself with the competition level, better athletes, and just try to see if I could stick at that level. And if that was, what I was capable of doing. And obviously I believed in myself, but, like my junior year, I was, again, had a pretty good season. I think I had like 4 or 5 picks, handful of tackles, all that sort of thing. And I was like, okay, like I feel like I have a chance to maybe get a scholarship. I did like a Cal Poly camp that offseason. The coaches were definitely a little interested there, but never really got an offer or anything like that. And then heading into my senior year, like, again, still no offers or anything like that. And had another great year. I think I had another 5-pick season or something like that. The 75 tackles that you were talking about. Again, that's my favorite part of the game, is being able to tackle. But early on in that season, I'm thinking, I'm going to get a scholarship because I'm like having a good year, but nothing ever kind of came in. And I think by the end of the season, still nothing. And I was like, you know what? I think I just want to go, walk on at a D1 school. And at that time, I was kind of very interested in the University of Washington, and kind of got a preferred walk-on offer there, and decided like that's where I wanted to go. I think I'd watched like a Stanford UW game my junior year in high school, and kind of fell in love with the Huskies, and was like, I'd love to play up here. Like, this is a beautiful campus.
I'm going to cut you off for a second there. When you finish your senior, you have so much production. Like that's really good. Like you would think offers start to follow after that. Like, did you always know you wanted to play at the next level regardless? Because I feel like a lot of athletes might be in that similar situation, and they're just like, oh, well, I guess it's just not for me. Yeah, no,
I knew, like, again, my career goal when I was in kindergarten, career day, was like I wanted to be a pro football player. So like I wasn't initially, if I was like, okay, if I didn't get a D1 offer, maybe it was, go the JUCO route or D2. I had D2 schools that were, give me an offer, but obviously it's not full scholarship. There's different stuff that obviously happens at the D3, D2, NAIA levels. And like I was very interested in furthering my career no matter what. And that's kind of what my head coach had kind of talked to me about. He's like, hey, like, I'll never forget this conversation because I got upset about it. But, my head coach meant well by it. And, obviously met Brian Nixon before. He's a great dude, great mentor of mine. And I remember sitting in there, I think it was, again, after the season, he's like, hey, like, going D1 is probably going to be like a pipe dream at this point. Like, you don't have an offer. It's basically end of the football season. Like, you need to start considering, like, maybe, some of these D2 schools that are coming in D3. So I think that's when I kind of initially thought about it, but it's still kind of being, I guess, a little bit thick-headed. I was like, you know what? I just want to walk on, and I feel like I can, make something happen. And like, that was so to answer your question. Yes, like, I think there's no perfect blueprint to going to the next level or going pro. Like, there's nothing that says, like, you have to play D1 to go play pro football. In the NFL, in the CFL, you got the UFL now too, right? Where you can get paid to play the game that you love. So I think having that open-mindedness that, okay, you're never too good to go play D2 or D3, because those are just as good players. I mean, even up in Canada, the players are just as good. They just didn't get the opportunity because there's only so many spots that are available, right? And everyone's situation is different, whether that's financially, geographically, what have you. But that was kind of where I was at, at that point in my high school career. And then my dad, I was obviously blessed enough. My dad was born and raised in Canada, played junior college football in Bakersfield. So that's how he met my mom. And that's how I, ended up being born and raised down there. But he was just like, hey, this is like February of my senior year. So basically, I mean, basically by that time, you're pretty much committed to what you're doing. You're getting ready to graduate, all that sort of stuff. And he was just like, hey, would you ever play football in Canada? Because that's what he did. He had played at the University of Calgary after JUCO and, hurt his back and finished his career there, moved back to Bakersfield. But I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I would love to. So he looked at, I think, his alma mater in University of Calgary, and then the University of Calgary's head coach went over to UBC in Vancouver, and he sent my film to both those schools. I kind of took a little visit. They were interested, and got offered a scholarship from UBC, and kind of just committed there. And I think the spring of 2015, about 2 or 3 months before I was going to graduate, and kind of never looked back from there. So that's kind of how my I guess story led me to Canada in that sense. And I figured, like, go where you're wanted at the end of the day. Like, yeah, I had a preferred walk-on offer at UW, but we all kind of know how the walk-ons get treated, and it's right. A grind. And it's not to say that I couldn't have gone there and earned a scholarship and earned my way onto the starting spot. Like, it wasn't, the reason I made that choice wasn't because I doubted my ability to perform at the next level. It was like, okay, looking at them side by side, you have one school that wants to pay for your entire tuition, which is a huge deal, especially looking back on it now, being an adult, and when you start to understand finances and budgets and all this sort of stuff. But if I actually went that UW route, like, we're probably looking, I mean, $40,000 or $50,000 worth of tuition, right, over at least just 1 or 2 years if I hadn't earned a scholarship. So I think realizing, okay, go where you're wanted. You have someone that wants to pay for your schooling, and you're opening yourself up to, again, the CFL, which I didn't really fully understand or know about at that point in terms of, I guess, having a career and playing there. I just kind of knew, yeah, my dad grew up in Edmonton, Warren Moon, Hall of Fame quarterback in the CFL and the NFL, and him revolutionizing the game for quarterbacks in that way. But that was kind of like all I really knew. But yeah, definitely very grateful for kind of how that ended up opening doors for me, going up and playing in Canada, and now being up in the CFL the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had no idea your dad played in Canada, so that makes a lot more sense how you end up there. I actually didn't know that part of your story, so that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And honestly, that's invaluable information that you just shared, as far as, like, that is a lot of kids. I had someone on the podcast previously, I'm going blank on who said it, say that a lot of kids are chasing the logo more than actually chasing football, to where it's like, oh, I'm going to go to Alabama because it's Alabama. It's like, well, why? Like, you don't even have an offer to, no disrespect to, like, a UC Davis. The Alabama's not going to offer you a scholarship. Like, go get an offer from a Cal Poly or a smaller school, and then you could kind of work your way up the chain. And obviously, we live in an era of NIL and all these things, and money and all these things. Like, I feel like I'm going to age myself here, but don't lose sight of, like, college is an invaluable experience. And I've even sat down one time and kind of broke down, like, I have a bachelor's from Oregon State and a master's degree from Fresno State, and I've done them. It's over 200,000 worth of education that my parents surely weren't going to stroke a check for 200 grand. So obviously everyone's in a different position financially with parents, but like I knew I was going to have to figure that out. I was going to have to get a job, or I was going to have to take on the student loans, and I was going to have to repay that. So I think there is so much value in what you said of going where you feel wanted. And I promise you, it is a different experience when your coach actually wants you in the position room. Because I've seen and been a part of position meeting rooms where the coach, like, for whatever reason, there's just not a relationship there. And it makes it 10 times stressful. Like, football is stressful enough, and you start throwing in the semantics and all these kind of things that kind of cave in and kind of make the pressure feel overwhelming sometimes. You saying go where you want it, I mean, that's such a big thing. And just generally speaking too, I know you could probably do an entire podcast on this, but for most of our listeners are based in the US and know US football and NFL, but what are some of the biggest difference between the CFL and the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, right away, obviously, most people are going to see the field dimensions are bigger, right? You have a 65-yard wide CFL field compared to, I think, the NFL field's about,
53 and a half,
53 and a half, So you got an extra, basically 12 yards, which does add up. You got the 12th man, so it's 12 on 12, usually an extra receiver, extra DB. It's 3 downs as opposed to 4, still 10 yards to get a first down. And then as most people see, you'll kind of have the receivers that have that sort of waggle where they can kind of take a running head start as the ball gets snapped and then, hit those routes running, which I think, in my opinion, and a lot of guys that have come up from the NFL and played in the States, they say DB is one of the hardest positions in the CFL, way harder than it is in the NFL because you have to cover the waggle, and you got guys that have 4.4 speed and they get a head start at running at you too, right? And it's obviously very strict on the pass interference rules and stuff like that, no different than the NFL. So it's a challenging job for sure. But yeah, I think those would be the biggest nuances. I think there are some rule changes that they're I think announcing for the next year where field width is still the same, but the field goal posts are also in the end zone. That's another thing. You got 20-yard end zones. That's changing though. Not this upcoming season, but next season they're doing 100-yard goal line to goal line, 15-yard end zones, and then they're putting the field goal posts at the back, which kind of makes sense, right? Like I think, and I always tell people this from growing up in the U.S. and then obviously playing Canadian football, and then you start to. You just see different things, but I think from like a broadcasting perspective, when you are an American and you turn on and you watch the CFL and you see like some of these nuances of the game, like, okay, 12 players, you won't notice it right away. You'll notice the waggle, obviously. 3 downs you might notice initially, but again, it's not gonna, I don't think, bug you that much. But I think for some people, they can't get over like the field goal post being in the end zone. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like it's not 1942 anymore when
aesthetically pleasing to the eye.
Yeah, right. So and then having originally the football field, I think right now is 110 yards long, so you have a 55-yard line, which again, some people think your CFL traditionalists will die on the hill of you shouldn't change it, but our new commissioner has kind of change up some new rules to help grow the game, boost revenues, media deals, all that sort of stuff. But I think it definitely does make it more appetizing for our friends down south of the border. And I'm saying that because I'm up in Canada right now. I'm not in the U.S. But I would say those are the biggest differences. But other than that, like, it's football at the end of the day. Like there's explosive plays, there's big runs, there's big hits, all that sort of stuff. Kickoff. We do have the kickoffs that's still normal kickoffs compared to down south, and then every punt for the most part has to be returned. Like there's a 5-yard halo, so there's no fair catches in the CFL. So I think that gives a more dynamic return game and more onus on big special teams plays. Like there's always some big return that happens where like most of the time, like you don't see a punt return or kick return touchdown down in the NFL anymore, right? So I think that's kind of what makes the game, that much of an entertainment value for people who have never watched it before. But yeah, it's a fast game. There's not a whole lot of dead time, and you got to be conditioned to play in the CFL or just play Canadian football in general.
Yeah, and I'll talk to my prima donna quarterbacks out there. The ball is a lot different when you're throwing the ball. It took me some time to get used to throwing it, but it take a couple days of throwing it, you get used to it. The stripe will
right.
expose a quarterback. If you don't throw a spiral, it looks absolutely disgusting in the air.
Yeah.
So make sure you throw a nice, pretty ball that's tight. And like you said, the biggest thing was, like you said, the field too. I mean, as a quarterback, I mean, that makes all the difference. And even for a defensive back, I mean, you're covering so much more ground laterally, side to side, whereas I mean, I might be able to sneak it in between a corner hitch concept, and the corner kind of bites a little bit. Yeah. Like that's a long throw.
It's a long throw.
To get it over there, right? So you do get a lot of quarterbacks who have, I mean, if you have a hose, you could get away with a lot of stuff, especially in the CFL. You could get away with maybe a read where you probably shouldn't have thrown it, but you have a cannon, so you could kind of get away with it, So just obviously that's all the field study stuff that you do and at your position. And I think like one of the things I've kind of noticed too is just the guys who just the hype behind it, and it's like the daily habits and all that stuff. We kind of covered a lot, and I think one of the things you mentioned kind of indirectly with Bo was just kind of talking about just we always touch on Athlete Country Club, just how important proximity is to getting around the right people and people who've already done it and are trying to do it. And like for you, like what did you learn from being around, I don't know, like even like the Cars in Bakersfield or Eric Mahanke and just being around pros during your draft prep?
Yeah, I think honestly, like that's another thing I wish if I could go back and get into like a regimented strength and conditioning program, whether it was, I mean, I look at Eric's kids and, how athletic they are and coming up in that training, right? And he's obviously a phenomenal athlete, right? Played at the, arena level when it was actually, I think it was bigger, or they were getting paid as much or on the same as a CFL player. So had an opportunity to go play in the CFL too. But again, I think if I could have gotten to that earlier, I think that maybe could have helped me just looked apart a little bit more too, because also I think my senior year I was probably 5'9", 160, so that doesn't help too, right? Like now I'm 5'9", 195, right? Like I'm fully grown, and I was that after probably my first year of university. But if I could have done a little bit more on that end, like just the strength and conditioning, weight gaining, proper weight too, right? Like not, taking care of the nutrition and all that sort of stuff. I think that would have been really good. But yeah, as soon as I got in with him and, being around, Dave and Derek and, just being able to see, okay, what it actually takes, to get there. And Eric was always great, right? About, hey, these are the things that you need to do, like every single day, right? And I know you remember kind of in that draft prep of, all right, like it's more than just lifting weights, right? Like there's the mobility side, there's the stretching, there's the recovery post, there's the nutrition that goes into it, right? So, I mean, for me, I would just take the same sort of mindset that I had in football. Like Eric will tell you, like I'll ask him so many questions about just different things, what he thinks about stuff, and again, just trying to be better on that end and at every level. Again, not so much in high school because I was still, you're still trying to figure things out. And high school is a little bit different because it's not like there's as many guys that could say, oh yeah, I've been there, sort of done that. And, when you're between 14 to 18 years old, like you don't got a whole lot of life experience yet either. So it's more once I got to like, the university level and then the pro levels, like especially early on, like as soon as I got to, campus and stuff like that, I would try to find, okay, who are the best players on the team that have a lot of experience, have seen things, done things, and like how can I just get around them? Like not even like I'm not going to go up to them right away and be like, okay, so how are you what you are? Like I wouldn't be like that in kind of like a nuisance way. It's just like I'm going to be around these guys like until it gets to the point where like they may say something and then I can automatically ask the question that I had to kind of figure out, all right, what's this guy's diet? What's his training program? What time does he get here in the morning? How does he handle school and playing football? Those type of things. And then at the pro level, it's even more so. It's like, okay, how does this guy take care of his body? How much film does he watch? When he's watching film, what is he looking at, right? And those are the type of guys, right? Like these all-stars, multiple-time all-stars, most outstanding players, champions, those type of guys. I think when you can get around them at a young age, and I say young age from the standpoint of like, okay, if it's your first year in university or your first year as a pro, like that's just as important as when you first start playing football and you're just being that sponge of learning how to play the game and what it takes. And in those moments, again, it's less talking and more listening, right? That's the biggest thing is, okay, how can I just be a sponge with this dude who, and even up here, right? Because these guys, a lot of these guys, like, you know, one of the dudes that always sticks out to me is Cariel Brooks, you know, who's our boundary half my rookie year. Played in the NFL, I think, for like 3 or 4 years with the Cardinals. Wasn't a D1 dude. You know, I think he played D2 in Colorado, and then ended up going to the NFL. And just like seeing how he prepped himself, like how he was a pro, and just letting him sort of like essentially coach me in a way, you know, outside of just our positional coach on the field. Like I would say between him and Jamal Roll, who played at Catawba, and I think he's the first player to go to the NFL from Catawba, which I think they're either D2 or D3. But again, a dude that played, I think, like, again, 4 or 5 years in the NFL, came to the CFL, and just like being able to learn from true pros and just pick little things that they do and start incorporating them into kind of how my game is. You know, obviously I'm not the same genetic build as those guys, but I can take the intangible things from them. I can take the, you know, this is what he's looking at on film, and this is how he studies. This is what time he shows up in the morning. This is what time he leaves. This is how he takes care of his body after and before practice. This is how he, you know, eats on game day, right? Like, I think those little things are like the small victories that eventually add up to those crazy highlight plays that you see, you know, on TV on Sundays, you know, when the lights are brightest, right? Like I think that, you know, they always say you sink, or, you know, I think, what is it? You don't rise to the level of your competition, you sink to the level of your preparation. And those guys had high preparation levels, and I think I just adopted that into my daily mentality, and it's kind of gotten me to where I am today, and something I still use today, right? Like, I'm still trying to. There's always stuff you can learn from the younger generation as well. There's different things that they're doing that might work for you if you just take it, tweak it, and apply it to, you know, kind of how you do your daily stuff. But yeah, I think it's all about surrounding yourself with just guys that have, you know, been there and done that, and kind of are at the level of where you want to be at, right? Like, if you say, hey, I want to play in the NFL, or I want to be a Hall of Fame player, or, you know, I want to go D1 and achieve this, like, okay, well, you have to get around people that are also pursuing that, but have also went through that too, right? So it could even be as simple as like a coach, right? Eric played at Fresno State, Dave played at Fresno State and in the NFL. Now, while they aren't the same position as me, they still have the mindset. They still know what it takes to, you know, be good there, and then also excel beyond that. So I think it's invaluable, the information that you can kind of get from people like that, and being around them as much as possible. And again, the key is listening more than you're speaking at the end of the day with those type of guys, for sure.
No, it's funny. My mom always told me God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. He said you got to listen more than you talk. But no, honestly, dude, if I could replay that whole response, I mean, that is Athlete Country Club in a nutshell. Like, like verbatim. Like, I might plaster that response on our website and social media and everywhere. Like, that's literally what Athlete Country Club is. Because I mean, it's just the exposure therapy. Like, I created Athlete Country Club because I personally always felt like I was like 1 or 2 years behind my development, like where I could have been. And I was like, man, like, I learned something my sophomore year of college. Like, man, if I would have known this my freshman year, I would have been so much farther ahead. And then you fast forward, same thing, get to your junior year. Man, if I would have known this last year, I would have been so much farther ahead in my game. You know, it's just that exposure therapy. And like, for all the young athletes and parents listening, it's like, it's just little stuff. It's not even like game breaking information, but it's like, if you don't know what an IT band, you need to stretch your IT band. It's like, I remember getting to college and like, oh my goodness, this is so painful. What is this? So like, here's your IT band, buddy. You know, it's like, and it's like, and you're not even putting all your pressure on. You're supposed to do it with both your feet up, you know? So it's like that. And then there's just like, you get Normatec boots, and there's just like all kinds of like random little things that people are doing throughout their day to kind of, you're really just looking for that 1% advantage, you know, because I know, especially you in the CFL, I mean, everyone's talented. If you're in the locker room, if your name's on the roster, if you're a part of the team, you're good at football. Like, that's literally barrier level to entry. Like, everyone's good at football at that level. So this podcast, honestly, has been, truthfully, this is one of my favorite podcasts. I mean, the information you shared today has been amazing, brother, and I can't thank you enough. And the last question we always kind of like to end with is just, for whatever reason, if this entire podcast got erased, I forgot to hit record, or for whatever reason something happened and we lost all of it, and all we had was this last response, like, for you, like, what are your 2 to 3 truths about making it to the professional level that will withstand time?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this one like kind of came to me while you were talking, and kind of even before you were saying anything, and I was like, I feel like I should say something like this, but I think just not getting discouraged. Like if your goal is to play pro football, play D1, whatever it is, at the end of the day, I feel like if you want to truly make it, your goal should be to play pro football and get paid to do what you love, right? And NIL is a form of that. So you could say, college athletes are kind of pro football players in a way. But I think just don't get discouraged, right? Like there have been so many points in my life where it just didn't make sense. Like, why are things happening the way they are? And it shouldn't make sense for me to ever even sniff a pro football field, let alone, like get paid to play football, right? And I think in all that, just like don't let the lows discourage you from like what your goal is. Like realize that everything is not going to work out perfect, especially if you're a guy like me where you're 5'9" and you're in high school and you're maybe 160 pounds soaking wet. You can still make it. Like you just have to have that belief. You have to have that unwavering drive in you that is willing to sacrifice things and I think just go that distance to learn more, put in more work, because there's always work that can be put in. Like there's never one day. I mean, even my day-to-day right now, like there's always more work to do. I may not get around to it, but there's always something that I try to do. Okay, let me put in a little bit extra, obviously in a smart way and in a way that's not going to take away from my training or things like that, but doing things in a smart way is for sure important. But yeah, I think just don't get discouraged. Keep going. Don't let people get you down. Don't let someone tell you can't do something, because at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that you can do anything that you set your mind to. And it doesn't even have to be football. It could be anything, right? Like I'm sure we'll have a lot of kids on here that listen to this, and a lot of parents too, that yes, they want to play pro football, but their dreams may change over the next year or even the next 4 years once they get to university or get to college. And like whatever it is that you do, like don't worry about the opinion of others and what they say to you or what they try to pin on you and say that you are, right? Because at the end of the day, like you are what you say you are, and if you go out and put in the work in anything that you do, like there will be positive results from that. And it may not be from 1 week of doing it. It may not be from 5 months. It may not even be from 5 years. It may take 10 years before you are a millionaire, right? If you want to, be rich one day and that's your goal, right? But if you give up, you'll never reach that, reach that status or that level or that dream that you have, right? Like there's that age-old picture, I'm sure you've seen it, where there's like two guys mining, and the one guy, there's like the one guy is like maybe like an inch from mining the where the diamonds are behind, and then it shows him like turning around to walk away, his head's down, he's sad. And then you have the other dude who's just like hungry, and he's just mining all the way through, and he's gonna get there because he has just that relentlessness to keep going no matter whatever it takes. Like he's getting to those diamonds. So that would just be what I would say at the end of the day. Is like use that mentality to do whatever it is that you want to do in life, and you'll accomplish great things.
Yeah, no, that was awesome, man. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time jumping on here. I mean, again, you are, I feel, the epitome on the messaging we're trying to get across. If it's like, hey, if you set your mind to something, you're working hard towards it. It's not a matter of if I'm going to get it. It's just like when. Like when it's like, hey, my time's not now. Maybe it's next month. Maybe it's next month. Maybe I'll get my start later. And that's a whole conversation. We'll have to invite you back for the podcast a second time. But just talking about, I mean, just the nuances of not being a starter and still having to show up every single day. And we'll get into that the next time we talk. But I definitely appreciate you, brother. And I think what stands out kind of just about your journey is just there's more than one path. And I think you're a clear example of that. And sometimes that path looks unconventional, and it's actually the one that forces you to become like undeniable. Like it's not always about being the biggest, fastest, most recruited 5-star kind of kid. It's about understanding who you are, kind of maximizing what you have, and just like putting yourself in environments where growth is inevitable. So Stavros, brother, I appreciate you more than you know. We gotta be better at connecting a little bit more. I'll be better at texting you here and there, but I appreciate your time, brother. Yep, no doubt. You guys, thanks for listening. Share it if you found this valuable and you want to send it to someone who thinks they need to hear it. But until next time, this Athlete Country Club. See ya.